My husband walked out, leaving me with $35,000 in debt and ran off with his mistress. Then my 12-year-old daughter smiled and said, "Don't worry, Mom. It's handled." 4 days later, my husband called me in a panic. What unfolded next? The divorce papers scattered across our kitchen table told only half the story. Jonathan had vanished with his yoga instructor, leaving me with $35,000 in debt and a 12-year-old daughter to raise alone. But as Savannah walked into the kitchen carrying her laptop, her expression wasn't one of a devastated child. It was the satisfied look of someone who just executed a perfect plan. "Mom," she said casually, "I have something to show you about Dad's new girlfriend that I think you'll find very interesting." I looked up from the legal documents that had been consuming my attention for the past hour. The papers were filled with incomprehensible legal jargon, but the bottom line was clear. Jonathan wanted out, and he wanted to take as little responsibility as possible with him. The home equity loan remained entirely in my name. The credit card debts he'd accumulated were somehow also my responsibility. Even our daughter's future seemed to be an afterthought in his carefully crafted escape plan. "Savannah, honey, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to manage all this," I said, gesturing helplessly at the financial nightmare spread before me. "Maybe we can talk later?" Before we continue, I want to thank you for joining me in sharing these stories of justice and resilience. If you believe families deserve protection from betrayal, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach more people who need to hear this. Now let's see how this unfolds. But my daughter didn't leave. Instead, she settled into the chair across from me with the kind of determined confidence I'd never seen in her before. Her laptop screen glowed as she opened it, and I caught a glimpse of what looked like surveillance footage. "Mom, remember 3 weeks ago when Dad said he was going to that personal training conference in Dallas?" Savannah's fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. "He wasn't in Dallas." The certainty in her voice made me pause. "What do you mean?" "He sent me pictures from the hotel." Savannah turned the laptop toward me and my breath caught. The screen showed a map with a red dot pulsing steadily in our city, nowhere near Dallas. The timestamp showed the exact weekend Jonathan claimed to be at his conference. "How did you remember when I got lost during our camping trip last month? The one where you and Dad decided I needed a phone with GPS tracking for safety?" Savannah's smile held no innocence. "Well, the family tracking app works both ways. I've been monitoring Dad's location for weeks." My hands trembled as I stared at the evidence. The red dot had spent that entire weekend at an address I didn't recognize, staying there overnight for 3 consecutive nights. "Savannah, you can't just spy on people." "Can't I?" She clicked to another screen, this one showing a detailed timeline of Jonathan's movements over the past month. "Look at this pattern, Mom. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening he goes to the yoga studio for exactly 2 hours. But on Saturdays he goes to this address." She pointed to a location about 15 minutes from our house. "That's where Natalie lives." The room felt like it was spinning. My 12-year-old daughter had been conducting surveillance on her own father while I'd been obliviously trusting every lie he told me. "How long have you known?" "About the affair?" 2 months. "About him planning to leave us?" "About a month." "About him stealing our money?" Savannah's expression hardened. "I figured that out last week when I noticed our savings account balance dropping every time he went to see her." I stared at my daughter, this child I thought I knew, and realized I was looking at a stranger. "You've been watching our bank accounts too?" "Dad uses the same password for everything. My birth year." Not very creative for someone planning a financial heist. Savannah pulled up another screen, this one showing our banking login page. "I've been documenting every withdrawal, every transfer, every suspicious transaction. Did you know he opened 3 credit cards in the past month? All in your name." The words felt like physical blows. "That's impossible. I would have to sign." "He's been intercepting the mail for weeks, Mom. I watched him do it." Savannah's voice carried a matter-of-fact tone that chilled me. "He's been forging your signature on financial documents. I have photos of him practicing your handwriting at the kitchen table last Tuesday while you were working late." My daughter reached into her backpack and pulled out a manila folder thick with printed documents. Bank statements showing the systematic drainage of our accounts. Credit card applications with forged signatures. Photos of Dad meeting with Natalie at expensive restaurants we've never been to. Text message screenshots from his cloud backup. Yes, he forgot to change that password too. I opened the folder with shaking hands. Page after page of evidence documented my husband's methodical betrayal. Screenshots showed text conversations between Jonathan and Natalie discussing their plans to start fresh, and how they'd figured out the money situation. Photos captured them at jewelry stores, car dealerships, and real estate offices. Savannah, this is... I struggled to find words. This is incredibly thorough, but you're just a child. You shouldn't have to. Someone had to protect us, Mom. Her voice carried a maturity that broke my heart. You work 60-hour weeks to keep this family afloat while Dad pretends to look for steady work. You deserve better than being blindsided by his selfishness. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of our refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw not the innocent child I'd been trying to protect, but a fierce young woman who'd been protecting me instead. There's more, Savannah said quietly, scrolling to another section of her digital evidence file. Natalie isn't just Dad's yoga instructor and girlfriend. She's been stealing from the studio where she works. And Dad's been helping her launder the money through his personal training clients. The room tilted. What? She's been skimming payments from client sessions, and Dad's been training fake clients who pay in cash that gets deposited into accounts they opened together. Savannah's expression was grim. I have bank records, fake client lists, and photos of them together at the bank making suspicious deposits. I stared at the evidence of crimes I hadn't even known were possible. My husband wasn't just a cheating spouse, he was an active participant in theft and fraud. Savannah, if this is true, we need to contact the police immediately. My daughter's smile returned, and this time it was genuinely satisfied. Already done, Mom. I submitted an anonymous tip to the authorities 3 days ago. I also sent copies of the financial evidence to the yoga studio owner and their insurance company. You did what? Dad thinks he's so smart, leaving us with his debts while he starts over with stolen money. But he forgot one important thing. Savannah closed her laptop with a definitive click. He raised a daughter who inherited your intelligence and your sense of justice. And unlike him, I actually use my brain for good. The phone rang, interrupting my stunned silence. Savannah glanced at the caller ID and her smile widened. That's probably Dad calling in a panic. The police should be asking him some very interesting questions right about now. She looked at me with eyes that held wisdom far beyond her 12 years. Don't worry, Mom. I told you, it's handled. I stared at the ringing phone, Jonathan's name flashing on the screen like an accusation. Savannah reached over and pressed the speaker button before I could stop her. Courtney, thank God you answered. Jonathan's voice filled our kitchen, high-pitched with panic. I need your help immediately. The police showed up at Natalie's apartment asking questions about missing money. They want me to come in for questioning tomorrow morning. Savannah leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, watching my face with the clinical interest of a scientist observing an experiment. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with her father's obvious terror. What missing money? I managed to ask, though I suspected I already knew the answer. Someone reported suspicious activity at the yoga studio. They think money's been stolen from client payments, and because Natalie and I are together, they're treating me like a suspect. His voice cracked. You have to tell them I was with you in Savannah last Tuesday evening. Please, Courtney. I know things ended badly between us, but you can't let them destroy my life over a misunderstanding. Savannah rolled her eyes and mouthed the word pathetic, while making exaggerated crying gestures. Despite everything, I had to suppress a smile at my daughter's theatrical commentary. Jonathan, I can't lie to the police. It's not lying. It's just protecting family. Think about Savannah. She needs her father. Do you really want her growing up knowing her dad is in prison? Savannah held up a small digital recorder, its red recording light blinking steadily. She'd been taping the entire conversation. My daughter pointed to herself and mouthed, already got everything I need, while giving me a thumbs up. I'll think about it, I said slowly, watching Savannah nod approvingly. But Jonathan, we need to talk first. Can you meet me somewhere tomorrow morning before you go to the police station? Yes. Absolutely. Anywhere you want. Thank you, Courtney. I knew you'd come through for us. After he hung up, Savannah stopped the recording and plugged the device into her laptop. Perfect. That's recorded confession number 4 that he's aware of illegal activity and is actively trying to cover it up. Savannah, I need to understand something. I sat down beside her, studying her face. How did you know to plan all this? When did you become so strategic? She saved the audio file to multiple cloud accounts with practiced efficiency. Mom, you taught me to think analytically. Remember when I was 8 and you showed me how to debug code? You said the secret was to trace every connection, follow every thread, and never assume anything worked the way it appeared on the surface. The memory surfaced. Summer afternoons when she'd sit beside me while I worked from home, asking endless questions about logic trees and problem-solving methodologies. I'd been so proud of her curiosity, never imagining she'd apply those lessons to investigating her own father. But the phone, the surveillance, the evidence gathering, that's so much more than analytical thinking. Savannah pulled up a video file on her laptop. The screen showed our campsite from 3 months ago, with her walking deliberately away from our tent toward the woods. I recorded this myself. Watch the timestamp. The video showed Savannah checking her watch, then looking back toward our campsite before disappearing behind a large tree. 15 minutes later, she emerged from a completely different direction, looking confused and calling for us. I researched child safety apps for weeks before that trip. I knew exactly which ones had the best tracking features and how to convince you and Dad that I needed monitoring. He paused the video. The getting lost incident was just act 1 of a very long performance. My stomach churned as I realized the depth of her deception. Savannah, that's terrifying. You manipulated your own parents. I protected my family from a predator, she corrected firmly. Dad's been lying to us for months. I've been documenting his deception since I first noticed his behavior changes in January. She opened another folder on her desktop labeled Project Dad, with dozens of subfolders organized by date and category. Screenshots, photos, audio recordings, location data, financial records. It was more comprehensive than anything I'd seen in corporate investigations at my job. Look at this pattern. Savannah pulled up a calendar marked with different colored dots. Red dots are days he claimed to be job hunting but was actually at Natalie's apartment. Blue dots are days he withdrew cash from our accounts. Green dots are days he had client meetings that don't match any real clients in his contact list. The pattern was unmistakable. For the past 4 months, Jonathan had been living a completely fabricated life while stealing from his own family to fund it. How did you access his cloud accounts? Dad's never been security conscious. Same password for everything. Savannah 2012, my birth year. Touching, right? Her sarcasm was sharp enough to cut glass. His emails, text messages, photos, location data, search history, everything automatically backed up to accounts I could access. She clicked to a folder labeled Financial Crimes Evidence and my jaw dropped. Bank statements, transaction records, photographs of Jonathan and Natalie at expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, and even a car dealership where they'd apparently looked at vehicles we couldn't afford. Savannah, some of this evidence gathering might not be legal. Everything I collected was from accounts and devices I had legitimate access to as a family member, she interrupted, clearly having researched this aspect thoroughly. Dad never changed his passwords or removed my access from any shared accounts. Legally, I'm in the clear. One photograph particularly caught my attention. Jonathan and Natalie at what appeared to be a bank, both holding official-looking documents and smiling. What's this one? They opened a joint savings account 2 weeks ago. Deposited $12,000 in cash. Savannah's expression darkened. Want to guess where that money came from? The implications hit me like a physical blow. Our emergency fund had been exactly $12,000 before Jonathan drained it. He hadn't just stolen from us. He'd transferred our money directly into an account shared with his mistress. There's more. Savannah pulled up Natalie's social media profiles, annotated with timestamps and financial analysis. Look at her posting history from the past 6 months. Designer handbags, expensive jewelry, spa treatments, weekend trips to luxury resorts. Her yoga instructor salary is maybe $35,000 a year, but she's living like she makes 6 figures. The evidence was overwhelming. Natalie's lifestyle had dramatically improved right around the time Jonathan started claiming he was job hunting more seriously. His supposed networking events perfectly aligned with her sudden wealth. I cross-referenced her Venmo transactions with the yoga studio's payment schedule, Savannah continued, pulling up spreadsheets that would have impressed my corporate accounting team. She's been skimming client payments and Dad's been helping her launder the money through fake personal training sessions. Savannah, this is criminal activity. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Because I needed proof that would hold up under scrutiny. She gestured to her organized files. Suspicions and feelings don't convict criminals, Mom. Evidence does. And I wanted enough evidence to make sure Dad and Natalie couldn't wiggle out of the consequences. The kitchen fell silent as I absorbed the magnitude of what my 12-year-old daughter had accomplished. She hadn't just uncovered an affair, she'd exposed a systematic criminal operation that could have continued for years if left undetected. What happens now? I asked quietly. Savannah's smile returned, and this time it held no innocence whatsoever. Now we spring the trap. Dad thinks tomorrow's meeting is about you providing him an alibi. But what he's actually walking into is a carefully orchestrated confrontation where he'll confess to everything while being recorded by multiple devices. She opened a final folder labeled Endgame Strategy, containing detailed plans, backup contingencies, and what appeared to be a complete timeline for destroying Jonathan's carefully constructed lies. Don't worry, Mom, Savannah said, closing her laptop with quiet satisfaction. By tomorrow evening, Dad's going to learn that stealing from family has consequences he never saw coming. The next morning brought revelations that made my coffee grow cold as I listened in stunned silence. Savannah sat across from me at breakfast, methodically eating her cereal while casually describing intelligence-gathering operations that would have impressed professional investigators. Remember those 3 days I stayed home sick while you were dealing with the initial shock? She asked between spoonfuls. I wasn't actually sick. I was conducting field research. I set down my mug with shaking hands. Field research. I took the city bus to Dad's gym and the yoga studio. Told everyone I was a worried daughter looking for my missing father. Savannah's matter-of-fact tone contrasted sharply with the sophisticated manipulation she was describing. Amazing how much adults will tell you when they think you're just a scared kid. She pulled out a small notebook filled with names, dates, and detailed observations written in her neat handwriting. The pages looked like something from a detective's case file. At the gym, I talked to Marcus, Dad's workout buddy, who mentioned that Dad had been bragging about his new income stream from private clients. Marcus thought it was weird because Dad never mentioned any of these clients before and they all paid in cash. Savannah flipped to another page. Then there's Jennifer at the front desk who said Dad started acting secretive about his schedule around 3 months ago. He'd book training rooms but wouldn't put client names in the system. My daughter had been conducting interviews while I'd been crying in bathroom stalls at work. The contrast between my emotional breakdown and her methodical investigation was both impressive and deeply unsettling. Savannah, you can't just skip school too. Mom, would you rather I had stayed in algebra class while Dad destroyed our lives? Her sharp tone cut through my maternal concerns. Besides, the information I gathered probably saved us from financial ruin. She was right, but accepting that my 12-year-old daughter was more effective at protecting our family than I was stung deeply. Tell me about the yoga studio, I said quietly. Savannah's expression brightened with the satisfaction of someone discussing their masterpiece. That's where things got really interesting. I befriended Carmen, the receptionist, by bringing her homemade cookies and asking about yoga classes for stress relief after my parents' separation. The calculated nature of her approach, using our family's crisis as a cover story for intelligence gathering, revealed a level of strategic thinking that genuinely frightened me. Carmen mentioned that Natalie had been acting strange lately. Coming in wearing expensive jewelry, driving a new car, taking long personal calls during work hours. Savannah consulted her notes. She also said several clients had complained about payment discrepancies, being charged for sessions they never booked or receiving different receipts than what they actually paid. I felt sick imagining my daughter sitting in that studio, pretending to be an innocent child while documenting evidence of financial crimes. But the real breakthrough came when I talked to Lisa, one of the other yoga instructors. She's been working there for 5 years and knows all the regular clients. Savannah turned to a page covered with names and dollar amounts. Lisa mentioned that Natalie had been offering private sessions to 3 specific wealthy male clients, sessions that weren't going through the studio's booking system. The implications were clear and deeply disturbing. "Savannah, please tell me you didn't." "I followed proper investigative protocols, Mom. I never put myself in dangerous situations." Her professional tone was bizarre coming from someone who still had multiplication tables taped to her bedroom wall. "I observed from public spaces, asked indirect questions, and always maintained my cover as a concerned family member." She opened her laptop and showed me photographs taken with her phone's Zoom feature. The images showed Natalie meeting with older men at expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, and what appeared to be private residential addresses during what should have been her working hours. These men are all regular yoga clients with significant disposable income. Based on their social media profiles and public records, they're doctors, lawyers, and business owners. Savannah had compiled detailed background information on each person. Notice the timeline. These private meetings started right around when Dad began his affair with Natalie. The scope of the criminal operation was becoming clear. Natalie wasn't just skimming money from the yoga studio. She was running some kind of private operation using the studio as a front, with Jonathan helping to legitimize the income through fake personal training sessions. "How did you figure out the money laundering scheme?" "I cross-referenced Dad's claimed client list with actual gym memberships and found 17 names that don't exist in their system." Savannah pulled up a spreadsheet that would have impressed forensic accountants. But all 17 clients made regular cash payments to Dad's personal account, which he then transferred to joint accounts with Natalie. She showed me bank records accessed through Jonathan's cloud backup, highlighting patterns of cash deposits followed immediately by transfers to accounts I'd never known existed. The amounts were strategically small, always under $3,000 to avoid triggering federal reporting requirements. But over 4 months, it totaled over $45,000 in laundered funds. Savannah's analysis was frighteningly sophisticated. "Dad wasn't just cheating on you, Mom. He was actively participating in financial crimes that could send him to federal prison." My hands trembled as I processed the magnitude of what she'd uncovered. "Savannah, how do you even know about federal reporting requirements?" "Public library computers have excellent internet access, and the FBI's website is surprisingly educational about financial crimes." Her casual tone suggested she'd spent considerable time researching criminal law. "I also created anonymous email accounts using different library locations to submit tips to the appropriate authorities." She opened another folder showing email confirmations from various agencies: the IRS, the yoga studio's corporate office, the gym's management company, and local police departments. Each tip included carefully selected evidence designed to trigger official investigations. I made sure to spread the tips across multiple agencies and jurisdictions so that even if one investigation stalled, others would continue. Savannah's strategic thinking was both impressive and terrifying. I also timed the submissions to create maximum pressure. Each agency would start investigating just as Dad thought he was safely established in his new life. The final revelation came when she showed me printed copies of every piece of evidence, organized in clearly labeled folders and stored in multiple locations throughout our house. "Emergency backup plan," she explained matter-of-factly. "If Dad tries to destroy digital evidence or claims it was fabricated, I have physical copies with timestamps and metadata that prove authenticity." She'd even enlisted help from Marcus, the teenage brother of her best friend, who had advanced computer skills and access to equipment that could verify digital evidence integrity. Marcus helped me create encrypted backups and showed me how to generate verification hashes that prove the evidence hasn't been tampered with. Savannah spoke about digital forensics like other kids discussed video games. "Everything is documented according to standards that would hold up in court." I stared at my daughter, this 12-year-old criminal justice prodigy who'd spent months orchestrating the downfall of her own father while I'd been obliviously trusting his lies. "Savannah, what you've accomplished is incredible, but I'm worried about what this kind of investigation might be doing to you emotionally." She closed her laptop and looked at me with eyes that held no trace of childhood innocence. "Mom, watching Dad steal from us and lie to your face every day was destroying me emotionally. Taking action to stop him gave me back my sense of control." Her words carried a maturity that broke my heart while simultaneously filling me with fierce pride. "Are you ready for tomorrow's confrontation?" she asked, already moving into operational planning mode. I realized that my daughter had transformed our family crisis into a masterclass in strategic thinking and evidence-based justice. Tomorrow, Jonathan would face the consequences of underestimating both his wife and his brilliant, relentless daughter. The morning air felt electric with anticipation as Savannah positioned recording devices throughout our kitchen like a sound engineer preparing for a concert. Her methodical placement of backup recorders, smartphone apps, and even an old cassette player showed the thoroughness that had characterized every aspect of her investigation. "Remember, Mom, we need him to admit specific details," she said, adjusting the sensitivity on her primary recording device. "General confessions won't hold up as well as detailed admissions about dates, amounts, and specific criminal acts." I nodded, though my stomach churned with nervous energy. The reality of deliberately entrapping my husband, even one who had betrayed us so completely, felt surreal. At exactly 9:30 a.m. my phone rang. Jonathan's contact photo, a smiling image from our last family vacation, now seemed like evidence from a crime scene. "Courtney." His voice was different than I'd ever heard it. Shaky, desperate, stripped of the casual arrogance that had characterized our last conversation. "Thank God you answered. I'm in serious trouble." Savannah gave me a thumbs up and pointed to the recording devices, all showing active status with red lights blinking like electronic heartbeats. "What kind of trouble, Jonathan?" I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was racing. "The police showed up at Natalie's apartment at 7 this morning with a search warrant. They're asking questions about money missing from the yoga studio, and somehow they know about my training clients." His breathing was rapid, panicked. "Someone's been feeding them information, Courtney. Detailed information about things that should be private." Savannah rolled her eyes and made exaggerated, shocked expressions while silently applauding his unwitting confession. "They took our computers, our phones, even bank statements I thought were secure. And they keep asking about specific dates and transactions like they've been watching us for months." Jonathan's voice cracked. "How could they know so much unless someone's been spying on us?" The irony was delicious. He was absolutely right about being watched, just wrong about who was doing the watching. "Jonathan, what exactly are they accusing you of?" "They're saying Natalie's been stealing from client payments and that I helped her launder the money through fake training sessions." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But here's the thing, they have evidence I never thought anyone could access. Text messages, location data, even photos of us at places we thought were private." Savannah held up her laptop screen showing a police scanner app with active frequencies. She'd been monitoring law enforcement communications in real time, tracking the investigation's progress while coordinating additional evidence releases. "Jonathan, did you help Natalie steal money?" The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "It wasn't supposed to be stealing. Natalie said the yoga studio was underpaying her, that she deserved more for the private sessions she was providing. She just redistributed some payments to herself." His rationalization was pathetic. "And the training client thing, I just helped her legitimize the income so it wouldn't look suspicious on tax documents." Savannah pumped her fist in victory. He just confessed to conspiracy, tax fraud, and money laundering in a recorded conversation. "How much money are we talking about, Jonathan?" "Maybe 40 or 50,000 over the past 4 months. But Courtney, you have to understand, we were planning to pay it back once we got established. This wasn't meant to be permanent." The admission was even worse than Savannah's estimates had suggested. Our family's entire financial destruction had funded a criminal enterprise that Jonathan somehow justified as temporary borrowing. And our savings account, our emergency fund. Another long pause. I needed seed money to make the training client scheme look legitimate. But I was going to replace it as soon as. As soon as what, Jonathan? As soon as you destroyed another family's financial security? Don't lecture me about financial security. His defensive anger was finally emerging. "You have no idea what it's like being married to someone who makes twice your income and never lets you forget it. Natalie makes me feel valued, appreciated. She believes in my potential instead of treating me like a failure." Savannah held up a sign she'd prepared, "Motive established." Her prosecutorial thinking was frighteningly sophisticated. "So you solved your self-esteem issues by stealing from your family and helping your girlfriend commit crimes?" "It's not that simple." Jonathan's voice was rising, desperation making him reckless with his words. Natalie's clients were practically throwing money at her. Rich guys who wanted special attention and were willing to pay premium prices for private sessions. She was just capitalizing on demand. The implications of what he was describing made my skin crawl. Natalie's private sessions sounded like something that went far beyond yoga instruction. Jonathan, exactly what kind of private sessions was Natalie providing? Look, what consenting adults do in private isn't anyone's business. The point is, there was money available and we found a way to access it without hurting anyone. Except you hurt your wife and daughter, I thought, but didn't say aloud. Savannah was frantically taking notes, documenting every admission for future reference. Where are you now? I asked. Hiding in a motel outside the city. Natalie's completely panicked. She thinks someone inside the yoga studio set us up. But I know it has to be someone with access to personal information that only family members would have. His paranoia was leading him uncomfortably close to the truth. Savannah held up another prepared sign, time to redirect. Jonathan, if you're really innocent, why are you hiding instead of cooperating with the investigation? Because they're not interested in truth, they just want someone to blame for the missing money. And if I get arrested, what happens to Savannah? She needs at least one parent who isn't in legal trouble. The manipulation attempt was so transparent it was almost insulting. He'd abandoned his daughter without a second thought, but now wanted to play the concerned father card when facing consequences. Actually, Jonathan, Savannah's been doing quite well managing without her father's presence. Don't be sarcastic, Courtney. This is serious. I need you to meet me somewhere safe so we can figure out how to handle this situation together. Savannah was already pulling up maps on her laptop, highlighting the coffee shop she'd selected for the confrontation. Her choice was strategic. Public enough for safety, busy enough for anonymity, but with good acoustics for recording equipment. There's a coffee shop called Meadowbrook Cafe on 5th Street, near the downtown police station, I said, reading from Savannah's prepared script. Can you meet me there in 2 hours? Near the police station? Courtney, that seems risky. Jonathan, if you're truly innocent, being near the police station shouldn't matter. Besides, it's a busy public place where we can talk safely. Another pause. Hey. 2 hours. But Courtney, please remember that whatever mistakes I've made, I'm still Savannah's father. She deserves to have both parents in her life. After he hung up, Savannah looked up from her equipment with grim satisfaction. Phase 3 complete. He's admitted to conspiracy, money laundering, tax fraud, and accessory to theft, all while revealing Natalie's side business involves services that definitely aren't covered by the yoga studio's insurance policy. She began packing recording equipment into an inconspicuous backpack. Now we move to the final phase. Public confrontation with multiple recording devices and strategic positioning to prevent his escape. My daughter's transformation from child to criminal justice strategist was complete. In 2 hours, Jonathan would walk into a trap that would destroy his freedom and expose the full scope of his betrayal. The Meadowbrook Cafe buzzed with typical late-morning energy as Savannah and I claimed a corner table with clear sightlines to all entrances. My daughter had arrived 30 minutes early to set up recording equipment with the precision of a seasoned surveillance operative. A small device disguised as a phone charger sat on our table, while backup recorders were strategically positioned in her backpack and jacket pockets. Remember, Mom, let him talk first, Savannah whispered, testing her equipment one final time. Desperate people reveal more when they think they're in control of the conversation. At exactly 1:47 p.m., Jonathan walked through the cafe door and my heart nearly stopped. The confident man who had abandoned our family looked haggard, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. His eyes darted nervously around the busy cafe before settling on our table. The transformation was startling. This wasn't the arrogant person who had callously dismissed our marriage over the phone. He approached hesitantly, as if unsure whether this meeting was salvation or trap. Courtney, he said quietly, sliding into the seat across from me. His gaze flickered to Savannah with what appeared to be genuine surprise. I didn't expect Savannah to be here. Where else would I be? Savannah replied with deceptive innocence. This affects my future too. Jonathan's hands shook slightly as he ordered coffee from the passing waitress. The nervous energy radiating from him was palpable, and several nearby customers glanced over with curiosity. Courtney, I need you to understand something, he began, leaning forward conspiratorially. This whole investigation is based on misunderstandings and circumstantial evidence. Yes, Natalie and I made some questionable financial decisions, but we're not criminals. I reached into my purse and withdrew the manila folder Savannah had prepared. Jonathan's eyes widened as I began spreading printed documents across the small cafe table like tarot cards revealing his fate. Bank statements showing systematic theft. Screenshots of text messages discussing money laundering strategies. Photographs of him and Natalie at expensive locations during times he claimed to be job hunting. Location data proving his lies about business meetings and training sessions. Jonathan's face cycled through emotions like a slideshow of human devastation. First confusion as he tried to understand how such comprehensive evidence could exist. Then denial, shaking his head and muttering about impossible invasions of privacy. Anger followed, his voice rising as he accused me of hiring private investigators to destroy his relationship. Finally, defeated recognition settled over his features as he realized the scope and accuracy of the documentation before him. "How?" he whispered, picking up a screenshot of a text conversation between him and Natalie discussing redistributing yoga studio payments. "These are private messages. This is impossible." Savannah stood up calmly and walked around the table to stand beside Jonathan's chair. His shock was absolute as he realized our 12-year-old daughter had been present throughout their conversation, hidden behind a decorative pillar just 10 feet away. "Hi, Dad," she said with cheerful composure. "Surprise." Jonathan's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a fish gasping for air. The color drained from his face as the implications crashed over him. "You've been recording this entire conversation, haven't you?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Among other things," Savannah confirmed, settling back into her chair with the satisfied expression of someone who had just completed a complex puzzle. "I've been documenting your activities for months, actually. GPS tracking, cloud account access, financial monitoring, photographic surveillance, witness interviews, pretty much everything needed for a comprehensive criminal investigation." The words hit Jonathan like physical blows. He stared at his daughter with a mixture of horror and dawning respect. "You're 12 years old. How could you possibly?" "Mom taught me to think analytically and follow logical connections," Savannah interrupted. "You provided the criminal behavior to analyze. The rest was just systematic documentation and evidence compilation." Jonathan turned to me with desperate eyes. "Courtney, you can't seriously be okay with our daughter conducting surveillance operations. This is insane." "What's insane is you stealing our family's entire financial future to fund criminal activities with your mistress," I replied, my voice steady despite the emotional turbulence inside. "Savannah protected us when you were actively trying to destroy us." "I wasn't trying to destroy anything. I was trying to build a new life." "By committing federal crimes," Savannah interjected, consulting her notebook. "Conspiracy to commit theft, money laundering, tax fraud, forgery, and accessory to whatever services Natalie was providing her special clients that required cash payments and off-the-books scheduling." Jonathan's desperation reached a crescendo. "I'll pay everything back. Every penny. Just don't turn this evidence over to the authorities. Think about Savannah's future. Does she really want a father in federal prison?" "Actually, Dad, I already turned the evidence over to authorities 3 days ago," Savannah said matter-of-factly. "FBI Financial Crimes Division, IRS Criminal Investigation Unit, local police, and the yoga studio's corporate security team. You're probably going to be arrested within the next few hours regardless of what happens in this conversation." Jonathan's phone began ringing at that exact moment, as if summoned by Savannah's prediction. The caller ID showed Natalie's number, and his hands shook violently as he answered. "What? Slow down. They arrested you? When?" His voice became increasingly panicked. "How much evidence? What do you mean comprehensive financial records?" Savannah pulled out her own phone and showed me a news alert. "Local yoga studio theft ring uncovered, 2 arrests made." The article included photos of both Natalie and Jonathan being led away in handcuffs. "That's impossible," Jonathan said, staring at the screen. "I'm sitting right here. How can I be arrested if I'm—" His phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed Detective Martinez, Metro Police. The cafe's normal sounds, conversations, coffee machines, clinking dishes, seemed to fade as Jonathan stared at his ringing phone like it was a venomous snake. "Answer it, Dad," Savannah suggested with helpful encouragement. "Avoiding law enforcement only makes things worse." "Detective Martinez speaking. Mr. Jonathan Hayes? We need you to come in for questioning regarding an ongoing financial crimes investigation. Your location has been traced to the Meadowbrook Cafe on 5th Street. Officers are en route to escort you to the station." Through the cafe windows I could see police cars pulling into the parking lot with deliberate precision. Jonathan looked at Savannah with something approaching awe. "You orchestrated all of this. The timing, the location, everything." "I told you months ago that I inherited Mom's intelligence," Savannah replied calmly. "I just applied it to making sure you faced consequences for your choices." As police officers entered the cafe and approached our table, Jonathan's final words were directed at his daughter. "You're terrifying." Savannah smiled with genuine warmth for the first time during the entire confrontation. "Thank you, Dad. That means I did my job correctly." The handcuffs clicked into place with finality as Jonathan was led away, his criminal enterprise dissolved by the methodical brilliance of a 12-year-old who refused to let her family be destroyed without fighting back. The silence in the cafe after Jonathan's arrest felt profound, like the moment after a thunderstorm when the air clears and everything seems possible again. Savannah calmly packed her recording equipment while curious patrons whispered among themselves about the dramatic scene they'd just witnessed. Several people approached our table with expressions of concern and amazement. "Excuse me," said an elderly woman with kind eyes, "but I couldn't help overhearing. That was your husband who was arrested." When I nodded, she continued, "And this brilliant young lady is your daughter? My dear, you should be incredibly proud. I've never seen such composure and intelligence in someone so young." Other customers echoed similar sentiments, but it was the cafe manager who surprised us most. "Your meal is on the house," she said firmly. "I've been in business for 20 years. And I've never seen anyone handle a crisis with such grace and strategic thinking. Your daughter is remarkable." As we walked to the car, Savannah finally showed the first signs of emotional exhaustion. Her shoulders sagged slightly, and she leaned against me with the simple trust of a child who had been carrying adult responsibilities for far too long. "Is it really over, Mom?" she asked quietly. "The hardest part is," I assured her, wrapping my arm around her shoulders. "Now we get to focus on building something better." The legal proceedings unfolded with startling swiftness. Detective Martinez called us the following morning to explain that Savannah's evidence had provided prosecutors with an ironclad case. Jonathan's recorded confessions combined with the comprehensive financial documentation made plea negotiations almost inevitable. In 25 years of law enforcement, I've never seen evidence this thoroughly compiled, Detective Martinez told us during our formal statement session. "Your daughter's methodology was more systematic than most professional investigations. She should seriously consider a career in criminal justice." The compliment made Savannah beam with pride, but it was Judge Catherine Walsh's comments during sentencing that truly validated her efforts. Jonathan received 5 years in federal prison for money laundering and financial fraud, plus restitution requirements that would take decades to fulfill. Natalie received 7 years due to her leadership role in the yoga studio theft ring. The court notes that this conviction was made possible by exceptionally detailed evidence gathering, Judge Walsh stated. While we cannot officially recognize the source of this investigation due to the defendant's minor status, the thoroughness and legal precision of the documentation speaks to remarkable analytical capabilities. Savannah squeezed my hand during the sentencing, and I saw tears of relief rather than triumph in her eyes. She had never wanted to destroy her father, only to protect her family and ensure justice was served. The financial recovery exceeded our expectations. Asset forfeiture proceedings returned not only our stolen savings but also luxury items Jonathan and Natalie had purchased with stolen funds. The yoga studio's insurance settlement provided additional compensation for our family's losses. For the first time in months, our bank statements showed stability rather than crisis. More importantly, my stress-related health issues began resolving almost immediately. The constant anxiety about mortgage payments and mounting debt evaporated, replaced by a sense of security I hadn't realized I'd lost. My work performance improved dramatically, earning recognition from my supervisor and a promotion I'd been working toward for years. But the most significant change was in my relationship with Savannah. Our shared experience had transformed us from a traditional mother-daughter dynamic into something closer to partnership. She had proven herself capable of protecting our family with intelligence and determination that commanded my deepest respect. You know what's interesting? Savannah said one evening while we were preparing dinner together. All those analytical skills you taught me about debugging code, they work exactly the same way for solving real-life problems. You just have to trace every connection and never assume anything works the way it appears. Her insight sparked an idea that had been growing in my mind for weeks. Savannah, what would you think about combining our skills to help other families facing similar situations? Her eyes lit up with excitement. Like a consulting firm for people dealing with financial betrayal and fraud? Exactly. You have investigative instincts that rival professional detectives, and I have the technical and legal knowledge to support formal proceedings. Together we could help families who don't know how to fight back against betrayal. The concept energized both of us in ways I hadn't expected. Within weeks, we had outlined a business plan for Hayes Family Advocacy Services, a consulting firm specializing in domestic financial fraud investigation and evidence compilation. My software engineering background provided the technical expertise for digital forensics, while Savannah's natural investigative abilities could guide evidence-gathering strategies. Our first unofficial case came through Detective Martinez, who referred a family whose teenage son had uncovered his stepfather's embezzlement from the family restaurant. Working together, Savannah and I helped them compile evidence that led to successful prosecution and financial recovery. "This feels right," Savannah said after our first successful case. "Using our skills to help people who feel powerless against betrayal, it gives meaning to everything we went through." The local newspaper ran a feature story about our unusual mother-daughter partnership, which led to speaking invitations at community organizations and victim advocacy groups. Savannah's poise during these presentations impressed everyone who met her, but she always emphasized that her skills came from necessity rather than natural talent. "Anyone can learn to think analytically and gather evidence systematically," she would tell audiences. "The key is refusing to accept being victimized and channeling your energy into strategic action rather than emotional reaction." 6 months after Jonathan's arrest, we received an unexpected letter from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They were developing a training program on digital evidence gathering for complex domestic fraud cases and requested permission to use Savannah's methodology as a case study for law enforcement training. "Your daughter's approach to evidence compilation and strategic investigation timing represents best practices that we'd like to share with investigators nationwide," the letter stated. Savannah's response was characteristically practical. "If it helps other families get justice, absolutely. But can we get copies of the training materials? I'd like to improve our consulting methods." As we sat in our kitchen that evening, reviewing the FBI's request and planning our expanding advocacy work, I realized that Jonathan's betrayal had ultimately led us to discover strengths and purposes we never knew we possessed. "Do you ever regret how things turned out?" I asked Savannah. She considered the question seriously before answering. "I regret that Dad made choices that hurt our family. But I don't regret fighting back and winning. And I definitely don't regret discovering that we're stronger together than I ever imagined we could be." Our story had become proof that intelligence, determination, and strategic thinking could triumph over betrayal and manipulation. More importantly, it had shown us that the worst crisis of our lives could become the foundation for helping others find their own paths to justice and healing. If this story of brilliant revenge had you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Savannah stepped out from behind that pillar, revealing she'd orchestrated everything. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more thrilling stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.